We are back with another video as promised from the last one. In the previous video, I showed you how I design and print with a 3D printer some badges for our camping trips, just to have as a memorabilia from each camping spot that we have been at. So as promised, today I will show you how to do the hexagon that I used for the base of my badge. And obviously you can do this in a round shape, in a square shape. The reason for me using this as a hexagon is I'll be putting this on a camp drawer that I've built for my pickup truck. And that will just be as a display on the side of my box. So I've used this and it makes a nice collage as you stick them together next to one another. So let's start from your Tinkercad program. This is an open source program that I use that's directly from the internet, so there's no installations needed. You just register on Tinkercad and you will get to a display screen like this where you will have a working space and there's different functionalities. This is not a tutorial on giving you an in-depth explanation of how to use Tinkercad. There are many videos about that. This is just simply to show you the hexagon shape that I've done. On the right-hand side here, you will see that it's already at basic shapes and you've got a list of different shapes that you can use, and you can scroll down and there's even text that you can use and various other shapes. So for this specific tutorial, we'll be using, I thought it's a hexagon, it's a polygon that they call it, and I'll click on that and I will drag it into my workspace. Now, if you use your right click button, you hold it in, you can move your mouse and you will see that you can view this shape from the different angles. If you click on the shape, you will see that it's obviously quite high. You can click on it and you will see these blocks, these white markers. This is the indication of the size that it's currently at. You can again also decide how big you want your badges to be. For mine, I found that a good size is 8 centimeters or 80 millimeters. So this is an indication of the width and the length. So I click in that. It's currently at 20 millimeters, but I want to make it 80. I found that to be a good shape. Now, obviously, that's the one side. I click on that and I make it 80. Now you've got it. I'm just dragging it with my left cursor, left click into the center. And you can see that it's now still very thick. We definitely don't want a thick base like that. So you will find in the middle this little white block. Again, this marker, this is showing that it's also 20 millimeters high. Again, you can decide how thick you want it. I found that 2 millimeters is a good size because remember, you will now also be adding on top of your base, you will be adding your graphic and your lettering and the date or whatever it is that you want to put on top of it, and also the little border that I've done. So you must take into consideration the thickness that will add to your badge. So for me, I found that this is a good size at 2 millimeters. Okay, so there you have your base plate. Once you click on it, you will see that this will automatically come up this box that gives you some different options, changing the colors. And we will use this button over here now that says hold, and I will show you what we'll do with that. So to create the frame that goes on top of this badge, I will click on this shape and I want to duplicate it. I'm going to duplicate it 2 more times so that we've got 3 of these shapes. If there's an easier way, please let me know. I'd love to know a better way of doing this, but for me, this is what I've been doing. It is a bit of a long process, or possibly a longer process than necessary. Let me just get it all back onto my workspace. Now I've got 3 of the exact same sizes, the same thickness. So what I want to do now is one of them, I'm trying to create a frame from this to go on top of that, but it must be a bit smaller. So you'll see here a little triangle that shows up. We'll use that just now. But for this one, we've now got them all at 2 millimeters thick. I'm going to click in the middle there, and I'm going to say I want it at 5 millimeters. And you will see now why we do that. It can be 10, it can be anything. It's just so as long as it's thicker than this little one. Now what we want to do is we want to make it smaller so that we've got a frame that will basically fit inside of this frame. Let's color code it so that we don't get confused. Right, so what we want to do now is we want to make this one a tad bit smaller. You'll remember that it's 8 by 8 centimeters. So let's make this 7.5, so it's 75 millimeters by 75 millimeters. It's now a tad bit smaller, and we will move this on top of our other shape. And you want to try and center it with the bottom shape, just so that you've got some equal frames on the sides everywhere. What we now want to do is I'm going to drop this shape with this little triangle that shows up. I want to drop the shape to move straight through the 2 millimeter plate. So you can see now if I look from the bottom, it has come through from the bottom. It is also still above at the top. And then what we'll do is we'll tell this yellow one to make a hole. And if I now, I want to create one object of this. And how I'm going to do that is by left clicking and dragging across this, because remember there's now two shapes on top of one another. I'm trying now to select both objects and I'm going to group them. What it will do now is the yellow one, that is the smaller shape that has gone through the bottom shape, it's been created as a hole, and you will see now that it has now taken away the middle section, forming a frame. Let's just color code that now again so that we can just see the contrast. If I'm now to bring this shape on top of my... Okay, so you can now see that we have a frame. You will notice that it's not quite centered, so you will have to just work on getting that really well centered, possibly by, instead of using 75, the 7.5 centimeters, rather use an equal number, like 74 maybe, then you can get it centered much better. So for now, again, we've now taken out the middle section. This is now at still 8 and 8, but remember our bottom shape has got the same size. So we want to make this a bit smaller so that it fits on top. So we're going to say, let's use that then as a 74. And let's make this 74 and see if that works out better. Now, again, we will move this on top of our base shape. But as you will see, they are both now at the same height, which means this yellow border of ours is not standing out. It's not on top of our shape. It's at the same height. So what we want to do is we want to use again this little triangle, and we want to bring this shape up. That's 1 millimeter up. That's 2 millimeters up, which means my base plate is 2 millimeters. So this frame of mine is also 2 millimeters thick, remember? However, it's now sitting on top of my frame. So in total, my hexagon badge will have a 4 millimeter thickness. And if I now look at it from the top, I can just move my frame to fit better on top of my bottom shape. That looks about right. And again, if this is all that I wanted, I would left click at the top and drag across the two objects. And up here, I'm going to click on group, which will make this now one image. And if I now right click and I move out, I can see, if I move in here, you've got a frame on top of your base. So remember, this is obviously now one color, but if you 3D print it, you will be able to print it in two different filaments like I've done. You can go and have a look at my video, how I've explained that, on how I do that with the two different filaments, where I also set my 3D printer program Creality to stop at a specific height, a specific layer, and I then change my filament. Say my bottom filament was red, and I then want to make the frame and whatever else I put on top here, I do that in black. I'm then able to change the filament, and it will continue printing these graphics or whatever else I've got on here on my base. So there you have a quick short tutorial on how to use a base shape for your badges. This one is a hexagon shape, but you can do any other shape as I've mentioned. I will show you my camp box and where I've put my badges on. And there's still many that I've got to make, but it will grow over time. And I will then also give you a nice in-depth video of how I've built my camp box to suit my needs for camping. Until next time, thanks guys, cheers.